Yes, I know. This is what I don't understand what's happened to the physicians in our country, why they're giving out so many medications, but all of America is just so over-medicated. It's just unbelievable.
It really is.
I can understand a medication when you're really sick and you really need it, but people are walking around over the age of 65 that half the people are on 7 or more drugs. Well, once you're on 3 drugs, they say there's a 90% chance that 2 of them are interacting with each other.
Well, it's $1 billion business. I mean, I would say it's probably reaching into the trillions almost at this point. And, you know, you look at...
Yes, it is. And, of course, the advertising, you know, with the media, I mean, this is why, you know, people, they're feeling down or blue or whatever, and they see an ad, they'll say, oh, this will pick you up. So they go to the doctor and they get one of those, and then it gives them agitation, so they go back to the doctor and he gives them a benzodiazepine or goose bar or something, and so they've got another drug for the agitation. It just adds one drug after the other.
In your opinion, what do you think the most hardcore of these serotonin reuptake inhibitors are? In other words, which one do you see the most problems with? Which one do you see the most mainstream news stories that people go off the handle?
Prozac, because it's been out the longest, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you go into SSRI stories, a lot of especially the early cases, are Prozac, because it was the first one and it was out there for a long time. Then the next would be like Zoloft came out next, and then Paxil. So they're all bad.
So it's almost like it's just based on, you know, how long they've been around, because they all seem to have the same effects. We'll be back after this with Betty Henderson. SSRIstories.com is the website. The Info Warrior, 9 to midnight, weeknights here at GCN and PrisonPlanet.tv.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
We are back. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, joined by Betty Henderson of SSRIstories.com. And we were discussing really which of these serotonin reuptake inhibitors were the worst, but she just replied, well, they're all really bad, and the only reason that one gets more play than the other is because it's been around longer. Why are we drugging our children with these? What's the youngest case you've seen of a tragedy when someone was put on an antidepressant?
Oh, let's see. I think there was a 7-year-old boy just recently. He was on a combination of Prozac and Zyprexa. He hung himself in Florida.
A 7-year-old hung himself?
7-year-old, yes.
That is unbelievable to me. I mean, why are you putting...
considering that the FDA put a black box warning for suicidality for children in 2004. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are the physicians thinking?
Well, they're thinking about profits. Aren't these guys mostly paid off? Don't they get more money every time they get you to get on a drug? Isn't that what this is all about, money?
Yeah, it's all about greed, of course.
I mean, how do they live with themselves when you're a doctor and you're prescribing a 7-year-old a serotonin reuptake inhibitor and he takes his own life? I mean, he's a 7-year-old. He's not supposed to be perfect. What are the parents thinking?
This child did happen to be in foster care. Mm-hmm. But
even worse.
I don't know. Here in Texas, 68% of the children in foster care are either on antidepressants, antipsychotics, or, you know, one of those.
Now, who provides the funding for that? Is that taxpayer dollars, basically?
Yeah, there's a big argument going on in Texas about that right now because it's taxpayer dollars. But the poor little children, they're the ones. Yeah,
exactly. It feels like they're an experiment for these people to, again, profit on their misery.
They're 68%. Kind of a guinea pig, I'll tell you. I don't know why people don't do more research on what's going on with these, but who would fund it? Who can fund research on, like, why these drugs are causing people to kill?
Mm-hmm. Who's going to give you access to that? I mean, you'd have to do independent research, and that you're talking multi-millions, tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
And it doesn't seem to be in the best interest of these big corporate entities. I mean, you see these commercials on all the major networks all the time, whether it be during your favorite sitcom or the evening news, sports. They're all over the place. They seem like they're literally as frequent as, you know, fashion commercials, clothing commercials, car commercials, and now it's drug commercials.
They're all over. And this is on the cover page of SSRI Stories. The Journal of American Physicians and Surgeons had an article by Joel Kaufman, Ph.D. He's professor of chemistry emeritus at the University of Sciences in Philadelphia. And here's what he said about SSRI Stories. He says, since no clinical trial involving multiple homicides is ever likely to be run, no firmer evidence than SSRI Stories is ever likely to be found.
That's
You know?
that's
I mean,
unbelievable. So you can have 3,000 plus articles where these adverse effects are apparent to anybody with half a brain, but your evidence isn't good enough.
I think that we need some kind of epidemiological studies on these 3,120 cases, you know? Maybe some graduate student could do a PhD on it or something, find out what's going on. I see a pattern here. The pattern I see a lot is people their thinking becomes so abnormal, they begin to believe things like they go to the doctor because they have stress or they're, not feeling good or something sad happened, like their mother just died or something, and they're not feeling good, and then after they get on the SSRI, they start thinking that they're terminally ill. So they kill themselves. There was a case one time of a woman who thought her whole family, her husband and 2 kids and herself, that they were all terminally ill. So in the middle of the night, she got up and she went through the house and she shot everyone dead and shot herself dead. Left it in a suicide note.
Just incredible. And I think one of the reasons that you're seeing this more pervasive in society is because it's the why me society. Everybody's always crying. Listen, not every day of your life is going to be, roses, sunshine, and happiness. There are going to be rough times. And people are so quick to go and see a doctor, I haven't felt good this week, or I really feel bad, I can't get my life together. Yes, and there was a study out of Duke University replicated in Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas that showed that if you exercised 30 to 35 minutes 3 to 4 times a week, you did better than the people on Zoloft. In fact, after a year, if you kept this up, you were less likely to relapse into sadness and more likely to feel better. Now, and of course, who knows about that? I mean, why would anybody promote exercise? Who's going to, pay for that? Who's going to advertise on the TV? Hey, get out there and exercise. You know? Most people want the easy fix anyway. They don't understand that a lot of it is their own self-image. They don't feel good about themselves because they're not healthy. They're not getting enough exercise. They're not eating right. They're not getting enough sunlight. Some of the basic things out there to stay, happy. To stay, healthy. Instead, they want this quick fix because the TV told them if they take a pill, they're going to do much better. But it just blows my mind when the commercial is 45 seconds and the first 15 seconds is advertising the drug, but then the next 25 seconds is all the adverse side effects so they can wrap it up in the last 5 seconds where you can buy it, and people buy it.
Oh, yeah, they do, and I don't really understand why they're not that concerned about the side effects, but people do trust their physicians, and I think the physicians have been kind of fooled by the pharmaceutical companies. So many of those stories that have been written about the glories of Prozac were ghost-written by the pharmaceutical company themselves, and the clinical trials were really kind of a travesty. I mean, it's really sad. We never had people getting on so many drugs, especially like these SSRIs, because, women between the ages of 20 and 44, 16% of the women in this country are on these drugs, on these SSRIs. That's 1 out of, about 17 people or something. 16%, that's about 1 out of 7.
Yeah, no, it's almost hip and trendy to be on these drugs. I mean, I remember back being in college and, people would be on these drugs or they wouldn't be on the drugs, but they'd want to purchase them from kids that were on them so they could get a Zoloft or a Paxil or Ritalin. I'd see all this kind of craziness around me, and it's almost like they're glamorized. One of the other things that is over at your website right now is an article that says as many as half of men taking antidepressant medication, paroxetine, may have increased sperm DNA fragmentation. What does that exactly mean? Does that mean that, my child has...
That's men who take, that's Paxil, but this includes all the SSRIs. If you read the full article, there's 58 journal articles up there. Men who take SSRIs are less fertile, have half the fertility rate. It does something, it fragments their sperm.
Now, does this also increase the chance that, there might be an abnormality with the pregnancy?
Yes, especially for the women that take it. The fetus can, there's lawsuits going on about the fetus of a woman who took an SSRI during pregnancy, that they had a higher rate of birth defects and so forth and so on,
What kind of those defects are common with these types of drugs?
What kind of birth defects?
Yeah, what are the common ones?
It seems like the heart is affected a lot of the fetus.
So they'll have an irregular heart rate, or it won't be as strong, or it'll be abnormally small, things like that.
Right.
And those are lifelong.
They are life-threatening, and many of these babies have either had to have, surgery or they died.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and even if they live, aren't their lifespans really shortened?
Well, of course, we don't know yet because not that many years have passed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But they do know from looking at the drugs starting from the 50s that the people who have been taking these drugs, their lifespan is shortened, yes.
Where do you think the turning point for the industry was? Do you think it was really, you know, the mid-'90s? That's when they really started advertising on television?
I think it was about 1991 when Newsweek and Time and them had the Prozac capsule on the cover calling it a miracle drug. And they advertised it kind of like it was for people who were not just deeply depressed and in the hospital, but people who were stressed and who had normal, everyday sadness. And they said things like, it will make you better than well. Peter Kramer wrote a book called something about listening to Prozac, and he said that, you know, you would feel better than well, and it's just, and so everybody started taking it. I mean, who doesn't want to feel better than well, you know?